just so we have a couple of backups. That would be great.
Sounds good. See some familiar faces here. Nathan,
Yeah,
Rob, awesome. Pauline,
yeah, we have a lot of people coming on, which is really
Ryan,
nice.
yeah, Jason. How's it going? Cool.
Well,
Before
guys, we
we
can start off quiet, but as we get going, we're going to want everybody's participation. So I think we'll have a lot more fun that way.
before we jump into it, I want to congratulate Pauline for showing up all over my Facebook feed for the last couple of days.
You're very, very welcome. It's the least I can do.
Yeah, and thank you guys for, I'm assuming, getting up really, really early or staying up really, really late. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's 2 a.m.
Yeah,
Oh my
every time we
gosh.
see you, every time I see you guys on one of these calls or another call, I feel like we got to bring it because you guys are up at 2 or you're up at 3 a.m.
You took
Like,
the word out of my mouth. Yeah, I just like felt to say, man, now I just felt a lot more pressure there.
yeah, I always feel like that when they're on. Cool.
Yeah, we still got people coming on, so guys, just bear with us. Hey, Jason or Brian, you guys going to be able to monitor new people coming on and letting on the way the settings are just once we get started? I just have a couple coming in right now, and then but I just want to make sure you guys can because I probably won't pay attention.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, cool.
Do you have permission, Jason, to let people in? Because I do.
I haven't seen anybody pop up needing it, so I may
So
not.
let me see. Let me see what I have to do. Forgive me. If not, I'll keep an eye. We get a lot of people popping in. Let me just see. Well, I guess from my end, the only way is to make a host, but I don't think we want to do that right now. So we'll just let one or two and we're in, and then I'll just get started and I'll keep an eye on. That's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. Yeah, first of all, before we even get started, before I even record, I really appreciate everybody's trust and everybody being here. We're really, really excited to get started. So we'll do our best to give you everything we can. I'm going to hit record, and I think I'm just going to get going. All right, we should be good. So again, first of all, I just want to thank everybody. I really, really, really appreciate everybody being here. What my goal is, or our goal, I think, is for today, is to give everybody like a higher level overview of the landscape and where we're going while teaching some stuff. I'm going to use a Miro presentation, not because it's fancy at all. It's really going to keep me on track and keep us on track, sort of with some guidance. So bear with me with that. If you have questions, interrupt. Feel free. You're going to see participation is going to be great. I really mean this. I know this is sometimes said at the beginning of a lot of these classes, but I do best. And I love talking about CRO. I love talking about conversion and optimization, but I'm going to do best when you bring your questions, whether it's yours, your clients, et cetera. The other thing, and some of this may be in the presentation that I've noticed, is we have a lot of people from a lot of different walks of life, which is awesome. A lot of very, very accomplished people. But we have media buyers, we have a lot of copywriters, we have people who have done CRO, we have offer owners that are 8-figure offer owners. And I think that each of you may want a little bit something different out of a class, meaning we're all going to get the same thing, but you're going to have some special needs. I at least know from my DMs and talking, and I know Brian and Jason, I think you've heard the same. So I'm going to encourage you as we go through this, like, just, this is not the class to be shy. I mean, our goal is by the end of these 8 weeks to get everybody's questions answered, to give you everything that you need. So with that said, I'm just going to jump in and I'll start sharing my screen and we'll get the show rolling. And so I'm going to jump around a little bit. And again, feel free to stop me. This is just, again, keeping me on track. So my goal here, you saw in the posts, but truthfully, I've never used my feed, and Jason and Brian will probably laugh a little bit. I've never used it to promote anything ever, right? This is what we've been doing for decades. So I'm excited to share. The stuff that I'm going to be talking about, we've taught to private companies. We've taught and trained some people who went out and then set up their own training programs that you see out there for CRO. But Jason and Brian both convinced me to, like, this is needed. And so I love talking about it, and that's why we're here, right? Our goal really is to transform your business. And I know that sounds like, I don't know, cliche, but I really, really want to give everybody, whether it's for your own business or you want to expand to what you're doing. So we also mentioned this, and we'll talk about this in depth, but I really believe with my heart that this is going to prepare you for the future. There is like a ton of conversation going around regarding AI, regarding people losing their jobs. Everybody's throwing out the next AI course. I believe that what you're going to learn throughout this course is going to prepare you to grow and leverage AI and leverage the skills in a way that is not happening. So I think we'll talk a little bit later as we move along a little bit as to what we, the three of us, see going on from talking with a lot of people. Agencies, large and small, CRO agencies, copywriters, offer owners, and more. And so that's really the goal. The goal is to bring you ahead of the curve. So again, I wrote here, leverage AI, not be displaced. I just want to make this clear. This is not, for me, for us, really about money. I know for those that don't know me, we have software, we Visiopt, we do optimization all day long, every day. We'll talk about that later, but this class is not about Visiopt. This class is giving you the tools that you need. And I'm just doing it because I love it. And hopefully, maybe there's a group here that will work with us in the future, right? Maybe you'll sign up for Visiopt. That is not what the class is about. The class is teaching you everything that all of us do currently in CRO and CMO, what we're actually doing, how we get clients results, a proven path that you can follow. And we'll dive into that a little bit more. So everything that we're talking about, you can apply. You can apply to your current offers. You can apply to your client offers. And again, some of you have talked about, how am I going to get my clients? Some of you have talked about how can I approach my current clients and do this. Some of you talked about how can I juggle 3, 4, 5 of these clients or more. And we're going to talk about all of that. But I really think at the base of all this is all of that happens when you have the skill. And everybody here, from what I've seen come across, has the skill. Everybody already has skill in their own expertise. So I feel really, really confident. There's no, not talking about, newbies, or this is not a business opportunity. Everybody here, whether you're a media buyer or a copywriter or an offer owner, has the skills to make this happen. So I just threw this in here because right before I came on, one of our clients that we happen to train, they just showed us a $28 lift in AOV from a single test over 7 days. And why am I telling you that? Where it doesn't really help you per se. It's not going to be about what did they do. It's about the methodology that they followed after learning from us to do it. But that's why we're here, right? We're here because when you increase conversion rate, when you focus on increasing AOV, this in a single test is a game changer for anybody that's running cold traffic, right? On a single test. Now they're duplicating this, happen to be on an upsell, and see if they'll get the same results on future upsells. So anyways, that's what this is all about. I'm going to dive right in. This I mentioned before, but I'm going to say it again. I really, really want everybody to participate in this class. I don't want anybody to be shy. I would love it if, maybe not appropriate for this class, but if you want to share yours or your clients' URLs, funnels, then I would love, and then the three of us, to rip it apart in a good way. And I think from what I've done in the past and what I've done with clients, when they see that happening in real time, even if it's not your offer, I think it helps bring everything together. Because I don't think, listen, I'll sit and I'll talk for 8 weeks, and Jason and Brian know I can talk for long periods of time, but I think that can get kind of boring, even if the content is really valuable. So I just want to encourage you, if you don't want to do it publicly, send me a DM. But I really would love for everybody here, if you have a current offer, if you're working with a client that has a current offer or anything in between, for you, to the best of our ability, to give you stuff ready to roll so that you can increase those conversions and that AOV.
I will say that if you do have something like that and you have all the links to your offer, you could put them in the chat right here and I'll see them, or send them directly privately to me if you want to. I'll collect them for you. Or you could post them in the group as well. But if you have something you want us to tear apart, go ahead and just get it to us one way or another.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. Please, definitely. And I'm just going to say, don't be shy, because listen, we've all been part of these groups, and sometimes people don't want to share. This isn't when we're breaking down about somebody swiping somebody's offer. This is really about breaking it down. So if I go through your offer, we go through your offer, and you come up with, you'll be surprised, something we'll talk about, literally 6 months worth of tests that you could be running for that client. What you're doing and what somebody else is going to do in that same industry, even if it's the same industry, for tests, are two different things, right? We're not talking about cookie cutter, right? Where somebody is going to copy a headline. That isn't what this is about, and we'll see that as we move through here. So look, I feel funny about this, so I didn't know whether to include this or not again, but we put out in social media that, income claims. And this is not an income claim, so I've never had to do this before, but I'm just going to say, these are my earnings, right? There are no way are we making income claims or trying to. That is not what this class is about. I just sort of felt like, let's not leave that open loop there so people can actually see. So this is a client. They were a client for over 2 years. They paid us at the time, we're charging by offer. We'll talk about this down the road, but every month, 15, 15, and 10. And again, that's not to impress anybody. That's not to start this off like a biz op, but I know that we were writing it all over social media. I just want to say that everything we're talking about, everything that we show, is real. And I believe everybody here can do the same or similar with the skills. We're talking about CMO. And I know a lot of the questions that I got, and I think, Brian, Jason, you jump in if I'm wrong in here, but like, they want to know how can they easily, and we're going to talk about that, get to, become the CMO or a fractional CMO, or whatever you want to call it. And by the way, I think you're going to have decisions like that. You may decide to stay away from CMO and do only CRO, and I'll show you how easy it can be. But regardless of what you decide, the reason I mention this is, I'm not going to share, but I don't want this. This is just the other day, a client sending me and they want to give me an email address for their company and be officially for, that is not what we're after right here. Most of the deals that we do, we don't have to actively pursue. Most of the deals from my standpoint, from what we do here, and I know, again, Jason and Brian both have a lot of experience with this, but I want to let you know at the outset, it's not a hard sell. It's about presenting the offer in the right way and having the skills to back it up. And I want to stress everybody here has the skills to back it up. So, most of these deals are simple conversation. I don't ever, from our standpoint, from Visiopt standpoint, I'll let you know, we don't pursue acting as a CMO or a CRO for companies. Our growth comes from our software. It's not scalable. I love it because we love getting our hands dirty. I love it because I want to work with really good clients. And it's I'd say my favorite part of my day most times. But I think from the questions that got asked, at least as a little bit of a tidbit as to what we experience, we'll circle back on this, but it's quite much easier than I think most people think. Not a lot of hard selling. So the only purpose there, I want to move on, and I hope it makes sense, is I just want everybody, people came in for different reasons, to understand. We will get into, and I think that, I know that Jason has some killer stuff regarding this, but I think we want to start with broad strokes and start with laying a foundation and having a conversation today, giving you some real stuff you can take with, and then we'll build. From my perspective, everybody has their own skills. From my perspective, CRO is the easiest way to be in the door and get in the door, meaning after most of you, if you're a copywriter, to add it to, because you are, and we'll talk about this on there, you are becoming a growth lever in their business instead of an expense. So I won't spend too much more time on that. So my fancy AI photos, there you go. They were the most fun about putting this together. I thought maybe a good place to start this conversation is to talk about what this is not, specifically what CRO and optimization is not. And I'm taking some of these, and for some of you, you're going to say, yeah, no duh, it's obvious. But, whoops, sorry, I'm letting somebody else in. But with that said, there almost isn't a client we've worked with. There almost isn't a media buying team we've worked with, and we've worked with some of the largest, and even A-list copywriters that understand or get all of this and aren't either giving clients misinformation or wrong information or pursuing it in a way that is not helpful to the client, or do not know when a client pushes back as to why this is happening. So the goal here, well, let me just dive in. This is not best practices. This is not checklists. I was going to print one out because I have a couple and I just didn't have time. And one of these dramatic type, they're useless. I'm going to tell everybody here, and maybe you purchased, and this is nothing against anybody that is selling any of these CRO checklists, but for the most part, they're lame. It does not mean that you couldn't possibly take some of the recommendations and you take a site or an e-commerce site that isn't doing much of anything and get some lifts from there. I just don't see anything impressive in any of them, right? This isn't technical CRO. And I mentioned this from clients, right? They will have 3 and 4 agencies, and there's some stories I'll share as we go along, that have worked for them and done this for them and have not seen much of anything to resulting in the bottom line. And by technical CRO, we're talking about people that are tweaking the design, right? People that are saying stuff about a button or testing button colors and the like. Now, anybody here may say, well, of course that isn't what it is, except we've talked with, personally, I've talked with years ago when we started Visiopt, at least 100 companies that called themselves CROs at the time. Not one of them is approaching CRO the way we're going to learn and talk about today that's really going to give the big swings that we're talking about. So I just let you know what it is not. This isn't rehashed information. We're not doing there. Everything that we're talking about is stuff that we have personally developed and used in the real world. None of it's theory, although I want to give you a framework, a platform, a way of dissecting and breaking apart a site and a funnel and a site or a funnel with a problem in a logical way that makes sense where you can get repeatable results. So this will all make sense, right? I've talked to this at the end of time, but I'll say it again. This isn't a boring static course. I'm not here to record this and to put this out into the ethers or wherever it may be and say we have a course. This is a live mastermind. And so anything I say, it doesn't make sense, you have a thought about it, go right ahead. I'm open. I love questions. It's going to make it exciting. I thought this was interesting, and I didn't want to call anybody out, but I'll start. Maybe this will be a little bit fun. Maybe it won't. We'll see. This isn't Guru BS. And I'm going to just take a look at this. This was recently posted. Let me just move this up a spec. Does anybody, I'd love to take a look at this. This was posted and everybody was going and clapping, and because he's a guru that everyone here knows, and giving him praise and telling him how good he's doing. And he put this out to, pump his chest. I'm just curious as a start, and please, you're unmuted. Just, you can speak out. Does anybody want to look at this and see what's wrong with it? Because I'd like you to recognize all the BS so that you can stay away from the BS that you see posted on social media and posted in groups. And this just came across and I thought it was appropriate for that one thing. Anybody? I'll put you on the spot, maybe, Brian. If not, it's okay. I just thought it'd be a fun little
I
game.
don't see the revenue comparison for the whole funnel. Where's that?
That's one thing. Anybody else? Or anything else? From anybody? I don't want to waste. Anybody? Well, I'll just, no, please go ahead. Somebody just said something. Okay.
I think he was saying page views.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So let me tell you how I look at this, and let's go through this piecemeal. And again, it's just, I think, a bigger lesson. First of all, this was posted on the 21st. The test started at almost 1 o'clock Pacific on the 18th. Now, depending on what time he may have posted this, and I don't know, you're talking under 3 days. First lesson, nothing is statistic in under 3 days. Now, why? I'll just introduce one idea, and we'll talk about this more as we go through, because I'd love it if we can learn little things as we go forward. There's noise. Noise is anything that affects an experiment. Let's remember, we're not running these in a lab, right? In a closed off lab where we can eliminate all of the variables. We're in a real world. We're dealing with real marketing, real people, and it will never be that. So one of the things we're going to talk about, we're going to learn, is how to overcome that, right? That's where one of the things that causes people to make mistakes. So noise can be day of week. Noise can be hours of day. Noise can be a political event. Noise can be a holiday. Noise could be a weather event. All of these things will absolutely affect your test. So that's number one. This is complete BS. Because anybody that's run, even though the traffic sources aren't the greatest at this, but I'm sure if you've run Facebook traffic and you run it and it looks like it's not going to do that well, and on the third or fourth day you see a jump, and there's a lot of other reasons and noise and just like these networks algorithms. But the point is, there's noise, and there are ways to overcome noise. If you're dealing with affiliate traffic, there's going to be more noise depending on your traffic and how you're running. So we'll talk about all of this the second thing is, they're sending 75% of their traffic to the control, which is fine. We can do that with VisiOpt. We call it traffic control. It's a way to protect your profits. But when we're look at these numbers, there's next to nothing there in actual just views. Next to nothing. So if we are sending to the variation only 230 visits or eyeballs, and we'll talk about this because this is not a math class. I just want people to and I'm not a math guy, by the way, and my first grade teacher who I had to stay after to learn basic math early on would attest to that without question. But the thing is, the second thing is, we talked about this. They're sending only a tiny bit of traffic. The third thing we talked about is they're saying a full percentage. We go here and we start to see the control has, for this tiny test, right? I would never split traffic on a test there. They're sending 600 uniques to the control, 230 uniques to the variation. That means that the so-called experiment only got 230 eyeballs. Now, we'll go through and say what you need. I will go through and we'll talk about as this goes along how to get in and out of tests lightning fast, because we know the old adage, money is attracted to speed. But I can tell you right off the bat, this is complete BS. There's nothing here that is there. They only have 31 opt-ins. I'm a little bit confused. Is he talking about the opt-in rate growing by a percentage? Is because the sales rate is far less? The bottom line is here, and we'll talk and break all of these down so you guys understand how to run a real test versus a fake test. I can pretty much guarantee that if you were running this test to live traffic and kept it running, that the stats would change. There's nothing in here, at least, that tells us that this is accurate, that this will keep running. And
Can I say
nothing
something to
will-
illustrate this real quick? Because I didn't mean cut you off, but like,
No, I
all right,
want
I'm
to.
CMO of a company right now, and that's what I do pretty much. But I went to Scott and I said, when do you call it? After how many uniques do you call it? Because some people call it after a certain amount of actions, some call it after 100 clicks, uniques. He said, do 300 uniques a piece because you've seen it just turn so many different times. And sure enough, we did a test the other day. I would have called it early. It was the loser. It ended up turning into a winner out of like 3 different variations. Very interesting. So I saw it flip. It flipped.
100%.
It took going to 300 actual uniques. And the CEO of the company, very smart guy, has done $10 million a year. Didn't know when to call it either. I contacted Brian. I said, when do you call it? I contact people who are known for split testing. I say, when do you guys call it? And they don't know when to call it. So that was really interesting. Scott's look, it will flip on you. I've seen it flip so many times. So write it out to 300.
I just
love
want to.
that. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I just want to add, if you just took the same page and took 2 different 3-day periods, you could get something just like this. So,
Yep.
from in 1 week testing the same page, you could get the same variation, and so this really doesn't prove very much at all.
And that is, we'll get into the details like that. And thank you, like both of you. Thank you. You're both right. There isn't, well, we talked about that hard and fast rule, but I will show everybody. I think we'll go a little bit too deep right now, but how to figure out how many views, right? There's all this BS. There's either people playing it hard and fast, meaning loose and fast, sorry. Like they're like, sort of like, I'm not saying that's what they were doing in your case, but somebody say, yay, we got to win. And we're going through it, right? Even if this was 10 days, let's just make this up. So we got the noise out of it, but we still don't have enough data. So the amount of uniques, which again, consider that eyeballs on your experiment, is going to vary depending upon a number of factors. And you're going to hear me go over this again and again, but I think it's going to be important. It's going to vary by the spread of your conversion rate. It's going to vary by your goal. You can see a win and it can create a reduction in actual sales. I know that we'll talk about this. So there's just so many points here that are wrong. It's just like, and I don't want to jump the gun because I will give everybody like a real life explanation and example. Most of what's passed on, you are not going to be during this class or hopefully afterwards, optimizing for opt-ins, optimizing for click-through rates, optimizing for vanity metrics. So I'll just add this in and you'll probably hear me say it again, but I just want, while I'm on this particular topic. And by the way, this happens, and if I recall, I could be wrong, Jason, but if I recall, it was one of the, I'm not going to call it a platform, but it was a video platform that was. And so the other problem was that where they are showing the conversions to is an incorrect problem, is a wrong assumption. So why is this important? I want you to be aware of it. So when you see people, it's not the blind following the blind. We're going to learn how to figure this out. We want it more importantly, because the way you're going to get the CMO roles, the way you're going to get more and more jobs is by you actually running experiments or making recommendations, depending on what kind of end of the stick you're on, that actually stick. It makes no to anybody's benefit to say, look at me, we got you an increase. And then what's going to happen is you're going to go out to live traffic. And we have a lot of media buyers on the call, and they are going to see actual results drop, or even situations where you're going to see conversions increase, and yet they can't scale because they're not watching for AOV. And so there's a number of things that while learning about how to unwind, you also want to know how to make proper decisions. I'll share one other story just here and then I'll move on.
Scott,
yeah.
just had a thing here too, like, and maybe you can cover this at some point during the class.
Mhm.
I think like 2 things. So first of all, when we see stats like this, I mean, part of this is also marketing to our clients, right? Like I know we all want to have the ideal clients who absolutely understand and trust us to go through the process, but reality is it's just not, it doesn't happen all the time. So sometimes we have to get really scrappy. So one part of it is maybe you could cover at some point, like best ways to also market this to get buy-in from our clients. Because sometimes, like for example, I have a client, plumbing company, if calls drop below 30 a day, it's not just like that has implications on them because of their sales structure and all this other stuff. So of course they're going to freak out, right?
Yep.
And so they may, I understand what you're doing, but like guys, reality is like we don't want to fire our team, right? So we need this. And then the second thing is, yeah, sometimes we do have to get scrappy about things, and it's far from ideal in terms of what we want to do. But somebody may look at this and say, hey, like we needed to get more sales, and we know that we got them in the short term, and so that makes this person look better in their eyes, as opposed to somebody saying, no, like we're looking out for your long term, but like there has to be a type of balance too, where they're like, we need sales right now. So
let me repeat what I think you're asking, because I think it's a really good point, and I just want to address it, and hopefully I'm addressing it properly if I'm understanding. So You're talking about presenting a client, let's say the plumbing client, hypothetically, with stats like this to say, hey, look, we increased your sales. Is that what you're saying? And we have to get scrappy. That's what, so you want to do it even if it's not long-term. Is that an appropriate?
Yeah, or we're doing this the quote unquote right way. Okay, so we're doing this the Scott way, and it's too slow for some people, right? Because
Okay.
of the situation that they're in.
So
So
let
what
me-
are ways that we can
100%.
showcase this? Yeah.
Now I get it. So let me make a couple of comments, and we absolutely, I made a couple of notes. We'll dig into this as we're going across. So I have a couple of immediate thoughts on that. Number one, if we're looking at, and we're picking on this, right? We don't know if I'm there. First of all, let me take the second question first. We're going to show you how to get in and out of tests quickly. You can get in and out of tests quickly. The Scott way is not the long way. Money is attracted to speed. I will let you know that one of the things that we see across clients, across people who do optimization, is it's science and art. And what I mean by that is that some will play it very, very fast. And they can, but there's a way to play it fast where you can back out those numbers. That is different than doing something like this that has zero statistical, because with this, and I'm not saying specifically, but this, you're going to end up burning yourself, because if you got higher sales for this client that's desperate for clients for 3 days, and you call the variation as the winner, but ultimately in reality, that's pulling down on sales, now you got a major problem, because you're going to start running that the variation too soon. And what's going to end up happening there is their traffic or the sales numbers that they actually need will not be there. We've seen more cases than not, people creating this sort of spaghetti strand or knotted up scenario of tests, trying to do it, whether you talk right way or wrong way or scrappy way. The number one way, however fast we go, however slow we go, however big the test is that test has to hold. It has to hold more than a day. If we take, I'll throw out Jason's example. If he called that winner today and the client is happy today, hey, look at me, we're building your business, we're working on your business, we've helped you. And then 3 days from now, they're coming back to you and say, what the heck did you do? And for you or for the client, it then becomes even more difficult to figure out what out of the past, let's say it didn't happen in 3 days, what are the past 2 tests did I do that's increasing conversions or decreasing conversions? So I'm glad you brought up that point. We definitely have to focus on, absolutely. So I'm going to just throw this out for myself with you. People that don't have a ton of traffic, right? So is what we're talking about. People that don't have a ton of time. How can you get in and out of tests quickly? But, and this is always the but, to make sure that that's going to hold, because I would say, and I'm throwing out a fake number, but from what I've said, well, I'll just say this, and you don't take this as a statistic. Every client that we've come into that we are actually doing after somebody that calls themselves a CRO firm, and this isn't picking or calling out anybody, at the end is usually an unwinding process. It's usually because they, at the end of their engagement, ended up with no wins. And so if you're dealing with a big company, that's going to go on for a little while longer and they probably won't notice it. I would make the argument that if you're dealing with a small company that's dependent on those calls or sales, that it's even more important to the best of your ability to give them something that's going to stick. That doesn't mean we can't do things and play it on the aggressive side of the scale. And we can't talk with clients about what we're doing while we're doing it openly and honestly. Like if I were doing something like that, I'd let them know, look, in my best scenario, I would let this run for them, but I think we're safe because of X. Now I'm going to get ahead of myself. The other thing that will help you do that is we're going to learn how to get bigger spreads and conversions and test properly. And so among other tools that we can use and that we can run, that we'll talk about, one of the things that's going to make a big difference in here is that for this, let's pick on the plumbing client. If we got they got what, a 1% lift or whatever. I don't remember. Let's see what okay. So 8% conversion increase. Let's even pick on that. You're going to have to be in an 8% conversion increase for a lot longer to make it stick than if we can get you a 20% conversion increase. So if we're in this exact same client and we're testing using a methodology and you get a 20 or 30% or more, you're going to be in and out of that test really quick. So I love the question, and absolutely call me on it as we dig into, get into actually structuring these tests, because it's a really, really important point. The reason I'm passionate about it, and you'll hear me sometimes go off a little bit on these, is because I have clients right now on the opposite side, and they want to call things all the time. And I try to explain to them, because the owner knows, he'll use the word, I have a gut feeling. And I try to, even though I've explained and gone over, so it happens on both ends of the spectrum. And the problem is that, going back, and I'll pick on what Jason said, and it turned, that's the problem. So just in summary, for those that listen there, we want to be fast. We want to know how to get in and out of tests fast, but I don't think there's any benefit to anybody to give them we'll call it a fake lift that may or may not affect. And I know you do, and feel about media buying. And so if you start having trouble because accidentally you went too quick and it dropped the AOV, and now you're struggling on, that's going to become a disaster that your team's going to have to unwind. But I love the question. Did that make sense in there? We'll get into the details. Okay, cool.
Scott, can I just add one thing?
Yeah, I love it.
Because we run all our tests on live traffic basically, and the sort of mindset I've taken is, look, if it's winning, we're already making more sales than if we had just the control running anyway. So we're still winning while we're running the tests. So we might as well let it play out.
Yep, that's a really good point. And what we do here, and with especially with certain types of tests, is, and we'll talk about this, is you can run tests and profit. And so you can get the best of both worlds. And that's a really, really good point. If you're running at an overall profit, and the way we're able to do it, we'll talk about this later, is you can pause and get rid of variations that are losing quicker. So you could, even for potentially a smaller client, instead of running just headline A versus headline B, or in this case, image A versus image B, which you can be in forever, you can do a wider experiment, even with their limited amount of traffic, that enables you to do that. I love that. That's a really good point. So I will keep going on, and we'll just keep there. So we talked about this, right? So this is just a take on what we talked about there. A temporary or fake lift will not hold to real traffic. Ultimately, anything we do with the noise is going to have to work with real traffic. And we see this all the time. I'm not picking on anybody's program or what people do, but it came up in conversations with Brian, I believe, and with some other people. This isn't about click testing. And we'll learn why that really isn't the best thing to go about doing. This isn't about guessing what to test next. And I'm just going to share, and I'm sure it's somewhere else in here. I was having a conversation with a good friend. He happens, and I'm not doing this in press, but they spend, I do this to make a point, about $2 million a month on Google alone. They do a lot of testing. But like he says, this is basically what they're doing. They're throwing stuff at a wall. I don't know if he has them in here. He's going to send some of his employees to there, because what we're going to learn throughout the course of this is like how to structure this so you don't have to guess what to test next, because that is what most people are doing. It's not about creating reports. And I'm doing this for those that want to do CRO. You won't have to do any reports. Really, really easy. And I say that because from experience, most of the CRO companies that are out there, that's how they actually work to try to impress the clients with their technical CRO. And I've seen it more times than not. And so right off the bat, when we're talking, we're not here about fancy reports, we're here about results. I let you know that also because we've had CRO companies say that and this isn't about our software, they don't want to because it's going to screw up their reporting. And that they know that if they keep their reporting, that they will have at least a 6-month engagement. A couple of examples I gave you, we've been working with companies for a couple of years. So there is not the ups and downs, and we'll talk about why, right? So we've recently had, and so again, some of this is just for me, some new clients. They've had 5+ agencies that they're paying. And you ask the result of it, and they have nothing to show for it. When we did what I'm going to show you, and what we're going to show you how to present to the clients and how to do as we go along this, they were impressed. Now, I feel funny saying this, so this is not to pat me on the back, because I want to pass this on to you just to show you this is different. They call it the mad scientist, called the mad scientist of CRO or something like that, right? It was one of the guys. He says, in a good way, right? We're going to learn how to optimize in a way that, from what I see, very, very few CRO firms are doing in a way that gets results. So when we do what I'm going to present, they're ad teams, they're creative. We talked about that. Make a couple of quick points before we move on. I think that it's important, and I think most people on this call know. However, I see this. These are real conversations. We say it's observational versus optimizational. I'll make it clear, because your clients, many of them think that this is what it is, and we're talking big and small, up to 10 figures. Seeing a report in Google Analytics and seeing that something is not optimization. Seeing a heat map and making a change to your page is not optimization. That's observation. Observations that we can use to test. Comparing last week's to this week's data is absolutely not optimization. And I see this all the time. Yeah, but we ran it and we changed the page. We had Facebook traffic running here, and then we ran it this week. That's not optimization at all. It's another way to blow your client's budget. It's not about measuring clicks. Absolutely it's not. It's not using one ad versus another ad. It's not setting up 2 different Facebook campaigns, and it's definitely not throwing stuff at a wall, right? I'll make mention of this, and we'll talk about what to do, and I will help you regardless of the tool that you want to use. But I'll let you know that I am friends with one of the top page builders and CRMs, and he doesn't use his own testing tool. And we'll talk about why, right? In other words, just to be clear, and I'm not making that up, I'm just letting people understand and know. I'm also going to let you know what this is, and I'm not calling anybody out, but we were on a call with an agency and that I like very, very much. And the client is impatient in there and says, well, what do you think about this new page? And they proceeded to go through and speak about, well, you definitely need to put stars here. And they're giving them this, definitely, this is the headline that you have to use. and you want to change the button color to this, and it has to say this. And the kicker was you have to change all your prices to 8s because 8s are going to, believe it or not, 8s. And I'm like, what the hell? Had to step in the middle. This is not testing and optimization. And this is what your clients may be hearing. They may be hearing it. Some of you are copywriters, so I'll pick it. They may hear from the copywriters. They may hear from the agencies. They may hear from their marketing department. They hear it because we're in a world of funnel hacking. And so it's also not making, and we'll talk about this as a big one, unless you're doing it the proper way, multiple changes to a page. It absolutely is not sitting down with your team or with the team and saying, no, we're going to change this. And if we change this and we change that, we are going to have a win. I'm going to go aside, and maybe later on you'll hear me talk about this. So forgive me, but it's there. It's just something to drill in. Everything that is on your page, everything that is not on your page is either increasing conversions or decreasing conversions. It is not about headline testing, although headline testing is good. It absolutely, it doesn't, it's just, you just, for now, remember that. If you are making multiple changes on a page, you've created what's called a cluster test. Congratulations. And here's the problem. We've had many people, I can give quotes, and others we don't need to. If you see a win, you don't know which of those variables are bringing up your conversions and which are pulling down. And so I'm going to stop here. We'll talk about how to deal with all this. But I want to know if anybody has any questions. I'm trying to set a base so that everybody starts with understanding. We'll unwind all this, and it's not difficult. But I will tell you, if you come across and understand some of this, I see this daily. I see this where we've gotten clients huge results. But I know that if we do this is, or I saw so-and-so. I'll leave one other thing, and we can talk about this more. I don't care if you are looking at an 8-figure company and assuming they're running ads and you're trying to copy what is on their page, you are destined for some pain and some failure. Most of them do not know, and I don't mean that some of them aren't very sophisticated, don't know what they're doing. They just don't. There's other things at work. There's other economics at work that are making them work. They are brand, they are X. We had it in one of the drink markets, and they were, what is the big green drink? I can't even think of it right now. It doesn't matter, but what they don't understand is they're now doing a ton of TV advertising. And so they're trying to copy stuff that would not work. So it is not any of that. Let's go flip. Let me find my thing here.
Hey, Scott, I've got one question before you move on.
Yeah, please.
So I'm a copywriter and a marketer. I'm not an expert at CRO.
Yep.
And I keep hearing live traffic versus whatever the other thing is, and I'm completely confused about that.
Okay. Well, first of all, there isn't another thing because you can't do it against non-live traffic. So forgive me if I'm using terms or something I say that because you want. First of all, yeah, I get why that could be confused. Everything's going to go after some sort of live traffic, first of all. And by live traffic is you need traffic eyeballs on the test. So let's just simplify traffic as being eyeballs on a test. There's no other way. There is different types of traffic where you have to test differently. There is affiliate traffic versus Facebook traffic versus Google display traffic versus search traffic versus YouTube traffic. Each are going to react differently. There is a huge difference when we talk about noise from somebody who is sending affiliate traffic through. I'll just explain that via why, and we'll talk about this. It's just like, the quality of traffic you have no way to control, right? One affiliate has a really, really good relationship with their list. The second one doesn't. And you're going to watch your data go like this, right? Up and down. And so there's ways of evening that out, and there's ways of handling it. But yeah, in simple terms, thanks for asking that. Everything is really live traffic. That makes sense, Nathan?
Yeah, and then a follow-up to it. I have noticed I had a really, really good landing page that was all text, and we were driving Facebook ads to it, and it was converting very well. And then when we switched to sending YouTube traffic to it, it did not convert well at all. And the switch we did is we put a video at the top of the page, and it seemed like people consuming video wanted to see a video when they hit the landing page. So when it was text to text, it did good, but when it was video to text, it did not do well. And so I wondered about if that played any role in what you're talking about.
Well, absolutely it can. I'll just jump ahead and we'll talk about that, like just what you just discussed there. So yes, different traffic sources will convert differently. There's a reason somebody is on Facebook, right? They're there to be social, as in all social media. Their intent is different. Then let's just use the opposite end of that, which would be search traffic, which is high buyer intent, right? You need two different types of landing pages. Sometimes you need a completely different experience. Sometimes it involves compliance. To take what you just said and just as a macro lesson, you need to understand what environment they're in and what environment you're bringing them to. So I'll go really old school and age myself, and then we'll talk about how this just applies. I'll call it a trick. It isn't a trick that most people had. Most of the best media buyers, when you had to physically go out and make, negotiations and buy placements. One of the tricks was to make sure your ad felt like it was congruent with the page, right? It felt native with the page, right? It usually would do well. It still does, by the way, depending on what ad network you're buying on. I have a friend, and I won't, talk about specifically, but they run large volume, and so they're doing this currently. They have one advertorial that runs on Fox and their app that matches it. They have another separate one that's designed to work like Yahoo. Now, don't quote me on this there. They have on one of those apps, their daytime and nighttime site looks different. And so they have their daytime and nighttime site. By the way, that isn't always the end all. This isn't like this magic secret that all of a sudden is going to, push up your client's conversions for the record. For the record, there you got super high click-throughs on one of the sites, but the conversion rate didn't change. But the point I'm making is that I sort of call this UI UX testing. And so in your case, that makes 100% sense, right? If we are going from a YouTube video environment to a YouTube video environment, it's better. You can even play without breaking rules, and we're not talking gray hat. I would argue that the more the experience can look like and feel like YouTube, that there's at least it would be something that I would test and test pieces of. Doesn't always work. So that makes 100% sense. I know I went off a little bit there, but yeah, it's exactly what we're talking about. We want to understand the results of all of our tests through the eyes of different traffic sources and not assume that the same exact lander is going to do the same way across. Another example of UI UX, just off the top of my head, would be, testing video and giving them one experience on mobile versus another on desktop, right? Try and test a vertical video on mobile versus desktop. On YouTube, you probably could take it to an extreme. And again, hopefully nobody's just going to go out and just start chatting about this online or just use it and test it for yourself. But, back to your YouTube example, if we can make the top of fold pop so it's all video, whether desktop and you even that you have the rest of the page on mobile, the vertical fills the entire page. And depending on what kind of video player you're using, you can even pop the CTA right over. There's a lot that can be done, right? And broken up. But it's a great question. And the short answer is, yeah, I can definitely see that making a difference. And I would continue, if it were me, optimizing along those lines. I mean, we're going to go deeper than just like UI, UX, and it isn't always the quickest or easiest, but it definitely makes sense. Was that helpful at all to anybody?
To me, yes.
Okay, great. So some of this is a little corny, and I'll just turn the corner here and we'll just talk about this. But the old adage, and I should have been able to use ChatGPT and come up with a better saying here than this corny one. But really, this isn't about giving you a checklist or do this or do that, right? I mean, we'll talk about it. I want to talk about pages. I think from our experience and the people that do best is if you understand how to fish, if you understand how to break apart a page or a situation. I don't know, Brian, I know that we had a private conversation. That's exactly what we were talking about. So maybe even as part of the next class, we can talk about that even before, because I think there's a lot of lessons if you're okay with it, Brian. But we talked about how do you unwind a mess, right? Whoop, Brian?
Yeah, Scott, totally cool to go through that in the next class if we need to, yeah.
But the point is that you want to know, part of the discussion was do I do this move or do we do that move, right? Everybody has ideas, and you want to be able to do that in a logical way and test your way there, because otherwise you're starting to throw. That was the overarching, I think, theme of what we talked about, doing it in an intelligent way, because people will come in a panic. And they'll say, no, this isn't the right type of page. No, this isn't working because this is the format of page. And so now they have designers and they're starting to throw a lot of stuff at the wall. So anyways, I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but maybe next time we could have a conversation about what we talked about. And some of this would probably become really clear if you're cool with it.
Yeah, absolutely, Scott. That client had 3 different funnels running at the same time and none of them were working. And what happens when something's not working is everyone on the team starts panicking. And when panic sets in, that's when bad decisions are made. So instead of, taking one funnel and getting one funnel to work by what you were talking about, Scott, testing the messaging first, they were launching new funnels and a new funnel and a new funnel, and it was just dumb. They were losing money faster than ever by just launching funnels.
And you said something right there that will a sneak peek. That's what this is about, messaging. I will tell you that the biggest swings over the years are almost always messaging. And so when you come around with a checklist, I'm not saying that you can't listen. Maybe the guy's right. You put some stars here, social media stars, and that one. That is not, in most cases, going to move the needle where you need to move it. We've all seen the ads. So I love that. Yeah, the fact of messaging, that's awesome, right? We want to be able to do this in a repetitive way. How can we get real results, right? We want to think in terms of optimization. Think in terms of how do we break down the pages? How do we break down the funnel. Understand what we can and should be tested, right? Which most people, they're just hitting the tip of the iceberg. I mean, one of the examples of the client that I gave you before, and again, I'm not studying, but I think there's just a lesson here, is that after, I don't remember, 3 to 5 different CRO firms, they really hadn't even touched or tested their messaging. They haven't backed up, and we're going to talk about like an organized way to do there, right? A lot of, and I'll give you a quick example. I think what it's on here, I want to give and make this whole. So I hope this isn't moving too slow for anybody, and I hope this is good. But most of what we approach or we see is when the team, there are complete teams that feels their offer is completely optimized. And I say that because if you have clients that are smaller, if you have clients that have never done a test, this just becomes that much easier. But nobody here has to be intimidated, even by they say, well, we're running to cold traffic. I've yet to find an offer or a funnel where, and this isn't like us panning the back, that hasn't been able to be improved. It's why when we have actually done it for clients, we run 2 years plus, as long as the client is good and wants to do it, because you can continually be making improvement. And I just wanted to say this here, because we have different people, if you're a copywriter or you're not, right? It's about playing beat the control. And from my perspective, it's the most fun that you can have, right? If you're a copywriter, great. You have all the skills and all the tools to be able to do this. If you can get out of your own way, we'll talk about that a little bit. If you're not a copywriter, I would argue that you can beat the copywriter. And I know that sounds like a challenge. You absolutely can. And we'll talk about that. And I want there. And so I also want to talk about, and we have some great ad people that could teach us all a ton. So that isn't where I'm going with this, but I apply and have helped agencies apply the same principle that we're learning here of optimization to ads, the same way to break it apart. And I'll just give a little snippet, like, you know, they were one of the clients and they're spending a lot of money and they're growing and they're doing things well and all that kind of stuff, but it was going really slow. And it's because they're throwing so much creative at it instead of finding that smoke, finding that little bit of fire and reiterating on what's working in an intelligent, structured way. So I just wanted to let you know a lot of what we're learning and tie it in and answer questions can be applied. So instead, what we did, and I'm not the media buyer of the year, but what we had to do is identify their top, in their case, 8 to 10 ads that were really producing conversions, right, at a certain conversion rate. Looked at it in the same way we would break down a landing page and started breaking this down into pieces. I know from the media buyers on the call, I hopefully already know this, but if not, 2 words changes in a ad, in that little text above the more button, can increase click-through rate on a good ad. Can increase it by 30 to 50%, we've seen sometimes. And better than that, it's like taking something that you already know is converting, and now if you increase the click-through rate, all the numbers just start to make sense. So we'll talk about that and how, you know, to take everything you see and learn. I want to make a point about this because I think it's important. There are some good groups, there are some not some good groups, there are events that people go to, and usually people are overwhelmed with ideas. And gosh knows that on the internet and in our groups, there isn't a limit on ideas as to what's going to work and how it's going to work. One of the things that I want to show you is, I'm going to use a bad analogy here because I didn't think a bad example. You know, just because somebody tells you, and we all know this, so this is a dumb one, to put testimonials on your page, does not mean that when you put testimonials on your page, it works or it doesn't work. It's how you go about doing it. It's how you break it down. This is something are you putting testimonials that are talking about the result they got? Are you putting testimonials that are leaning into the pain? Does the testimonial represent your ideal buyer or buyers? I've seen testimonials reduced. Are you utilizing headlines on your testimonials? If so, have you tested the headline on the testimonial to make the testimonial more scannable? Do you put 3 across or 1 across? I'll get into all this. We're going to learn how to break it apart because there is a ton of ideas and concepts put out there. And I think that there's the perception that if I just add this to my page, because he knows, and there's some really, really smart people who worked on his offer. I think that the lesson here is it's not just about adding a technique. It's about understanding so that you can then test and not only make it work for your offer, for your site, but maximize the results out of it. That make sense to everybody? Yeah, cool. All right. So let me, if it's okay, I just want to give everybody, and this again is not to be for any other reason, I just want to give everybody a quick sneak peek. And I'm going to do this really, really fast. And I think in here is just like one overarching lesson that we can learn and we'll continue on. And I have my team brought up some of this, and this isn't about us, but I want to show you a few things. This is a 32% increase over the control. This is a 75% increase over the control. This is 154% increase over the control. I just want to make what we're talking about look and feel real. It's not about what was tested here. This is 128% over the control. First of all, we're always talking about real sales. I think that's important. I think we got that lesson previously. You're never talking or we're showing about opt-ins. We'll show you how to see everything throughout your entire funnel. That's all good. But these are primarily from teams that were running cold traffic and thought that they had their offer fully optimized. And the reason I wanted to bring this to everybody's attention is I don't think there's any team, if you have or learn the skills and the way to break it apart and follow, there isn't any offer that's fully optimized. Most of the clients you're going into just don't know how. They think they do, or they don't test as much as they should, or they talk about testing. Sometimes I talk about it like insurance. Everybody knows you need insurance, but nobody really wants to buy insurance. I think there's the same thing here. And so we can go through a few of these, but I just want to show you, this isn't like patting us on the back or trying to impress. 75% over the control. It's like the example that I gave you. Let me just see where we're at. That it's like the example that we talked about previously that I just got that just ended with a 28% increase in AOV, right? That doesn't mean somebody taught in there. That's one test. Think about that for a minute. And I just wanted to motivate you that, he's working with a client that is running cold traffic. We worked with him, whatever, it doesn't matter. But these are the things when you break it up. And this was a test that he did on his upsell one. I am sure with the brains that are on this call, that there are people that are going to do things within the framework that maybe I didn't think about, which is all awesome. But you're all capable of doing this. I'll share this just to give one lesson, just one quick lesson that I think, again, we're trying to hit the broader strokes. We're trying to understand like what it is that we're looking at. And we will go from here into, over the next test, exactly how to do this. And we'll get everybody's questions answered and you'll be able to take it away. I want to give you, this is a really small test. And there was a 37% increase in the front end on actual sales, which is great, right? Makes a big difference. If this particular client was doing, I don't want to throw out fake math, but I'll do it just for illustration. But if they were doing $100,000 a month, that's a $37,000 per month raise, right? Or over $400,000 a year. But here's where I want to show you. When we look at the back end for the same client, these are stats that they shared. You can get these through Viziop. That isn't what I'm talking about. It's a lesson. It was an 82% increase in real revenue and an 82.5% increase in ROAS. Think about that for a minute. This is not about getting a one-time increase over here, right at the front of the funnel. Everything you do, this is something we've always called the ripple effect, has a ripple either positive or negative throughout the funnel. I can tell you from here firsthand, an 82% increase or an 82.5% increase in ROAS makes the difference between failing or working, right, on the traffic networks. And so this is like huge for them. This enabled them to scale, but it's more about the lesson. We're going to learn about like in next class as to how I break down a funnel and where we start and where I think you should start. But I just want you to understand that there actually is something called a ripple effect. I'm sorry, Dan, did you have something you wanted to add? No, okay. So I'll just give you one more example and we will look here. And again, it's not to show you, look at what we did, but I want to show you this and explain this to you so that everybody is on the same page and understands we're not just coming in and testing and upselling. That everything when you approach is going to affect everything. This is an example for a pre-sale page. Client gave us permission to go. So if we remember, this is a VSL funnel. Have an advertorial out here that goes to the VSL. The type of funnel really doesn't matter, but a test on the pre-sale page resulted in a 90% increase, and that's actual sales. And so again, it's more about understanding that the ripple effect, that what you're talking about and what you're changing on the front end, A, you want to be aware of what's happening on the back end, and B, that it can have a massive impact on the front end, on the back end. Most companies that I know that we see, they aren't even aware of this. They're not even aware of what is actually taking place. They're running a test to upsell one with no understanding. And so the opposite could hold true. These, right? We're looking at big scenarios in the back end, but many times they'll run a test and you'll run it to, let's say, upsell one because they're afraid that, there's drop off, which there is. We'll talk about that. But it's either going to increase or decrease. So what happens, like we're talking about before, if you're running tests and experience and you say, oh yeah, look at what we did. Look, client, what we did. We got you an increase. And if we don't have insight into everything, or if your own offers, you don't have insight into everything, you're going to lose money. So the ripple effect, it can be really, really strong. And I just want to point that out to everybody. And I hope that was helpful and makes a little bit of sense. Anybody have any questions or anything that they'd like to add at this point? You're going to let me just keep here talking, huh?
Nothing in particular. I find it insightful. Honestly, just your unique views of everything. So proceed.
So sounds good. I want to take this outside of our realm for a minute and share some stuff. And again, the whole goal of this is what I'm hoping is get some people excited on this call, not just excited, but to understand where we're coming from, because sometimes we get caught up in our own bubble or the internet marketing world bubble as to what's going on. And I've always said, and I know this sort of sounds self-serving, but the ultimate leverage that you have, right, is CRO, optimizing what's in your own funnel. With everybody bitching and complaining about what goes on with the ad networks, and some of it is real and a real struggle, right? The ultimate leverage to all of that is increasing conversions on your own site. Our way, my buddy, is up to 2 million and wants to continue to scale, as he says. Like we had a talk. I'll just give you a background. He made programmatic work with anybody that knows anything about that. It's like a monster. They have tons of experience. They have a lot of staff there, right? All our conversations come down to one thing, the basics, right? And we're going to go beyond the basics as to what you can do. But for everybody who's a copywriter on here, this should be really exciting. If you're a media buyer, it should be exciting because this is where you're going to get the leverage. And we'll talk about that as we go through. I did this just to share a couple of stories and to let you know. So Meaningful Beauty, it's by Cindy Crawford, right? I think it was Gunther Renker that had that did this. They lost money, and I forget if they became the largest, right? They did 2 billion worldwide. If I recall the specifics on this, Meaningful Beauty lost money for a year, some big money, before they became the most profitable, I don't know what they are today, but the most profitable beauty infomercial in the world. They did that by reiterating and testing, right? If we go through, and you're going to hear this, me say like there, if a company, we're not talking about years, right? Our clients don't have a year to spend all that money. I don't want that to be the lesson out of this. But if they understand that they run their infomercial and lose money, or run their ad and lose money, then why is it that most of the offer owners are running a single offer, making a couple of tweaks and trying to change pages to get out of what's going on, like we talked about before, right? I just want to continue because, the masters of copywriting all knew about this, right? They knew intuitively, and they started learning with Claude Hopkins that, and I don't want to bring this back, I just want to make a big point here. They understood that their best copy was a version 1. They did, right? Let's look at and I said this in here, and I probably have a cute picture in here there, but they roll over on the graves to know what they can do now. Because during their day, they were sending old fashioned, either letter 1 versus letter 2 to a list, or we're writing up in publications. And I just want to share some of these just to get us all on the right page, right? David Ogilvy, my heroes, never stop testing, and your advertising will never stop improving. You don't have to hear it from me. And there, again, you want to keep asking yourself, well, why aren't people like sticking and doing with what worked for the most part, right? We have, I guess, can consider him maybe the inventor or the founder of testing, right? The time has come when advertising in some hands has reached the status of science. That's what we're doing here. Yes, I'm a creative. I'm not a scientist, right? But if you combine structure and the ability to test with your creative side, if you take your ego out of it, and I'm just talking all of us, I'm not talking about one person or one industry, and understand that what we as a copywriter are supplying to a client is V1, as a media buyer, we are not in control of what's happening on the page unless we can be, right? And that's why we'll talk about this. Media buyers have an average, engagement or churn of like 3 months. And everybody's all over the place. And this is something we'll talk about there because they're blaming the media buyer. We'll talk about this. But you as a media buyer are only as good as your client's offer. You as a copywriter are only as good as your last piece. And we'll talk about this. But here's where we can actually start talking, right? And we're going to go. This is another from Claude. Almost any question can be answered cheaply, quickly, and finally by a test campaign. And that's the way to answer them, not through arguments around the table. Claude Hopkins, page 77. It's not uncommon for a change in a headline to multiply returns from 5 to 10 times over. This is back then. This is, again, we're not just talking about headlines here. We're going to go far beyond it. So if you understand what they had to go through, and here's my cool AI image of them rolling over in their grave. I don't know, whatever. We talk about problems. There's your AI. Everybody, there you go. You get to take that AI picture. I want to also now continue this. Let's bring this into the modern times. And I want to talk about a couple of general concepts, right? How the big guys got big, because we all think that we know what they're doing. Somebody wants to get into that here. Mark Zuckerberg runs 10,000 Facebook versions a day. What do you think invisible? A day. Think about that for a minute. That's right, crazy. You think he believes optimization? We go here. If you double the number of experiments you do per year, you're going to double your inventiveness. Okay, let's just hear it from there. Another one, just because he's all over the place talking about this. Our success at Amazon is a function of how many experiments we do per day, per year, per month, per week. Oh, I'm messing it up as I go through this, but you guys get the point, right? This is some of the biggest, right? I love this one. The founder of Alibaba used to, I don't think he's still, but if you're not split testing, you're fired. He was known for saying that, and he was known for firing people over it, right? What do they know that most of us are ignoring, or people are ignoring? Most of us here, just quickly try to go through this because I want to keep myself on scale. We get 10,000 hour rule, right? And I'm not going to bother reading this, but Malcolm Gladwell, and the idea was that if you're not familiar with it, if you do 10,000 hours at anything, you become an expert. Well, among all the tech companies, they're talking about the 10,000, and forgive, I didn't have time to come in and get out the AI crap that went in there, the 10,000 experiment rule, right? And these are headlines. Forget the 10,000 hour rule. Edison, Bezos, and Zuckerberg follow the 10,000 experiment rule. Simmons' 10,000 experiment rule is pretty simple, and its principle is that it's been practiced by leaders and operators of companies like Facebook, Netflix, Google, and Amazon. It simply states that deliberate experimentation is more important than deliberate practice in a rapidly changing world. What are we in? We're in a rapidly changing world. Your clients are in a rapidly changing world. The offers are changing. The amount of competition is changing. And, I won't continue on that, but I just want you to all ask yourself a question. And I know, like, for some of you, this is obvious. For others, maybe it isn't. We're dealing with a wide broad. And again, today is about sort of setting that groundwork. But think about your clients. Think about if they're testing. How many of them are really testing to the length of the big guys? And we're going to show you how you can do some of this and how you can emulate this. But really what I wanted to get across is the importance of what we're talking about. And so now I would love, as we go through this, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit, and I think we're going to have probably a little discussion. I want to share the calculator that Jason built, the bot, which is very cool and very helpful, and a much better improvement of something that we did, and everybody's going to get it. But I talk about most offers in terms of playing Russian roulette. There's other analogies. Maybe this is a bad one, right? If you take an offer and you provide it, even if you think you know the market really, really well, if you take that and you just put it out and run traffic to it, and that's what you expect, you're playing Russian roulette. You may get it or you may not, right? That is V1. Most companies understand that is V1, unless you happen to be Agora, which leaves tons of good copy on the writing floor or VSL floor, or whatever you want to call it, the writing room floor, because they're just doing it with brute force. Most of what we're talking about here is just a V1. And so here's where the opportunity lies. And then we can talk about this and we can dive into this. If you're a copywriter, I guess I can talk about this, and then Jason, Brian, or whoever else wants to can jump in on this. Here's the thing, and I can talk for hours about this, and I've talked with offer owners, talked with some of the largest agencies in the world, including the largest YouTube agency. There is a problem right now. There is a perception problem, and perception is reality. If you are a copywriter, you are perceived as replaceable. You are perceived as replaceable by AI. The truth doesn't matter, right? I mean, it really does not matter. The best copywriters are using AI in conjunction with their copywriting skills. But the market's perception is they want fast and cheap. With at least a good portion, it's shrinking down, because this is what they're talking about. If you are a media buyer, you are considered, and I hate to break it, I'm sure most people are, a commodity. Look at any Facebook group. What's the first thing that they go to do? My media buyer isn't doing the job. I need another media buyer. But the problem is, and this is probably somewhere else in here, the big problem with that is that, and there are, and I've seen, by the way, media buyers that are much, much better than others firsthand. But the perception is that you're all the same. And the perception is that you're going to fix my bad offer. So that's where churn comes in. That's where we have a lot of issues come in. And I've seen this all the time. One of the YouTube agencies, the owner, and I forget the number of media buyers he had, he one day walked in and told all of them to find a new job. And what he meant by that was, if you don't change what your skill set is, you're going to be obsolete in his own media buying. Because one of the things that we'll talk about all the time, from my perspective, based upon the data that we see, is there's only real two levers. Everybody's chasing, and I know, by the way, there's some brilliant media buyers on here, some brilliant copywriters, and I am absolutely sure they can show all of us stuff that they do that makes things better. But ultimately, at its basic, it's the basics. We find it's usually 20% finding creative, 80% back in, which is great news for everybody on this call. You're in control. The reason for that is more and more from the media buyer's perspective, the levers that you can pull are going away and are gone. They will eventually, and I think this is pretty obvious, you will not have any except to push, a button and say, here are my ads. That's what Facebook ideally wants right now. I'm not saying it works. I'm not saying it's ideal. I'm not saying I'm recommending it, but you have a perception problem and you have the market sort of fighting against you. I think that this is your key because you can take your media buying skills and instead of dealing with what may be a very bad offer or with holes in it, you can get control of that offer and make it better. And you're accomplishing a couple of things. Number one, as we all know, if we increase conversions, what happens to cost per acquisition? They drop. What happens to return on ad spend and return on investment? It goes up. In addition, you are now feeding the pixel with this new better buyer data. And so you create a circle. But more importantly, maybe than all of that, is that your perception switches, whether you're a media buyer or copywriter, from commodity and expense, and this I think is really big, to an investment. When you are helping them grow their business, that's why I think, from my perspective, CROs, whether you got a win on their test this week or didn't, and I think a lot of you can get a lot of wins. You, instead of, how much did my ads cost me this week? Right? And even if it's a return on ad spend that you're getting, even if you're doing everything right, what do they think? What's the move? I can do it myself. We're now spending too much to John, Joe, Rory's on the call. This is just the mentality. Eventually, I want to bring it up. They may completely fail when they bring it in-house, but that's not the issue. From a copywriter's perspective, it's the same thing. You're only as good as your last win. And if you are not helping them build their business, so some will go and write copy and they'll give a couple of headlines. Okay, want to do much more than that. That's going to benefit your relationship with your client, going to benefit their business, but also is going to benefit you. I don't know if you, Brian, or Jason, you have any kind of thoughts on this? I thought, maybe I probably have the, because you guys have been in the weeds on this kind of thing, but I just think it's an important, maybe stopping point to talk about this and why this is, I think, such a big deal.
Yeah. I feel like everything right now is changing rapidly, but it's also presenting an opportunity, and I have a very positive vision of where we're going. And I think that really saying full stack marketer is really where we're trying to go with this. And AI makes that possible. I would say that it's easier than ever to upskill in many different disciplines now with AI doing the heavy lifting and knowing what you're doing. And AI is just going to become something that does more and more of the heavy lifting as more advanced tools even come out this coming year. But I have a very positive view of it because it just means, for example, and I will say, just let me step back and say CRO. I feel like that is it's a loophole really that's going on right now. I think it's your perfect way in to the way things are changing right now. I think if you just brought in CRO to your current clients and you added, more of a higher retainer for just doing that, it's going to improve things. But I think if you position yourself as someone who does CRO in general, you're really, it's really kind of like, I've been a copywriter and media buyers. I know AI is starting to do more and more of the heavy lifting. It's just going to continue like that. But with CRO, I feel like you really have to know what you're talking about. You can come in with that. But as a CMO as well, it's good to upskill in all these different disciplines because whether you're overseeing it all and telling the machine how to work, or you're jumping in yourself and be able to do it, or you're creating SOPs. I feel like that's the whole point behind the full stack marketer, starting with CRO, but also just gaining as many skills as you can so that you can oversee work and get paid higher. Go in and take advantage of the times because a lot of people are freaking out, but it's presenting a massive opportunity for everybody really that's in this class. I know it is. It has been for me. So
yeah, I'll add to what you said in that most offer owners, most businesses have also an additional problem that I think that you can plug. We've talked about this a lot, and business owners will talk about it a lot in private. Trying to bring all of these skills onto their team is really more than a challenge. They're incapable many times of doing it. And then there's internal, I'll call it fighting. It may not always come across as fighting, but boy, where you have a copywriter doing one thing, you have a media buyer doing another thing, and then you have somebody doing CRO. And so Facebook has a bad week, and they're blaming the CRO and looking to make changes in their business tomorrow. The media buyer, or what did you do to my media, right? It all holds true. Like we were going to create, I was thinking always, I wanted to run out with a meme, right? No, it's your fault with the media buyer and the CRO and the copywriter. It's what goes on. As an owner or a manager of a company, it is a huge time suck. It is a lot of time invested. It's usually a lot of bad decisions made. So whether it's under the pretense of a CMO role or a CRO, which you may choose only because for getting skill, it can involve less time and equal money. This will be, you have these skills, but they need somebody that can see. It's why we're doing strictly CRO for a company, and that's all. And we don't take on a lot of clients, and why we're jumping in and giving them advice regarding their ads. I don't intend to replace their media buyers, nor would I ever want to, but they're not seeing the entire picture. They're giving them incorrect information. I have seen with the same company, I've seen an ad agency, and I'm not picking on anybody here. I've literally seen them tell them that they need a whole new type of page when we have a cold traffic offer that is converted between 5 to 7% at an AOV of $150. Point is, if you are the owner or offer owner, you are constantly under pressure and constantly trying to put out fires and trying to figure out what's going on. If they have one person that understands all this, that can manage all this, that can direct this and head it all in the same direction, it is of huge value. So let me check next, if it's okay. By the way, if anybody has any, because we could probably talk about that for hours. I just think there's a huge opportunity. I want to show you a tool, and we can thank Jason, the bot master and agent master. Let me see if I can find this. Let's just do here. So let me tell you, we've used tools like this. Jason just made it much, much better. And this is going to help you see the return on investment from everything you're doing, but it's going to see your clients. I do ask, this isn't something that you want to put on the front end. We're going to talk about how to get clients. This isn't something that you start advertising to. It's something when you're dealing with your current clients, right, that you show them. It's something when you're on a private call, you can show them the return on investment. Now, I could have pulled out, there's tons and tons of data that when we talk about leverage, before I jump in this, that even bad CRO gets a return on investment. There was a long study done, and I can pull it out for people in this class if they want it there. But I think it was right around 235% return on investment, meaning for every dollar that they spent on optimization. Let's go beyond the word CRO. Let's just call it optimization, because that's actually what we do. They're getting a $235 return. I would argue you can get much, much higher than that. But the point is, when we're talking with people and you're talking with clients, having something physical to bring it all to the forefront and explain to them what is the return on investment is powerful. So let's just go here. We can tell it we're ready. And I'll just put in some general numbers. And let's just say we'll put in fake numbers. We'll say our conversion rate is 5%. You could be asking your clients this. Let's take easy to see. I want to make sure I did that right. 100,000 monthly visits. Let's just use, and again, you could be talking with a client and privately, as you do and should be doing when you're getting the data, put this in. What is the anticipated increase? Now, I showed you, by the way, I'm going to put in 30%. I showed you an examples, and I didn't even show you all of them, but I want to take this also. You see examples that we can show you between 30 to over 400% on a single test. And I did that like to motivate people and people to understand. If we put in 30% here, and I'll show you the numbers, it doesn't matter to your client whether you get 30% lift over one test or 5 tests. You are changing most businesses, for the record. But let's put 30% in. Let's say we are investing in CRO. Now, this is just whatever your fees are. Again, we're going to talk how to command high fees. We'll talk about all that, but you can put in what is it going to cost? What is it going to cost to invest in you? This could be done, by the way, for CMO or for others, right? So if we go through and we walk through the numbers, and I'm not going to spend all the time going through here, and that was not right. Forgive me. Let me start a new chat. I didn't want it to be that high. That was the way I entered it, 5%. Make sure I type it properly. What this is going to do, and I'll show you the reports that you can paste into a proposal. What did it increase? Let's just say 0.30. And then we'll look at that. I don't want to spend too much time on this. So all we're talking about here, I just want this to be clear, right? Like, and I get that everybody's smart and everybody gets this, but sometimes we're not talking about making a conversion rate go from 5 to 7 or 5 to 10% or doubling. We're talking 30% in conversion. So the conversion rate here went from 5 to 5.3. We go here and we go customers converted goes from 5,000 to 5,300. Okay. This means that your monthly increase is $30,000 based upon our fake numbers, right? The monthly revenue after conversions, right? So we're going before optimization, and here's after in black and white. That's monthly. If we take the modest $5,000 investment, whatever it may be, it will be higher, but it doesn't matter. We can now see here the return on investment for your client. That means that if you go in, and I don't want to spill beans there, and you go in and you make a deal, and one of the ways there, you can promise a conversion rate, and I'll talk to you about that, the pluses, the minuses, and how to do this. But if you go in and show a client what it is, that if all I do is get you a 30% increase in conversions, that's all I do. And I don't know with your, we'll talk this platform, I bet you can do it in a single test, but whether it's one test or 4 tests, your return on my investment, month 1 is 6 to 1. Month 3, 18 to 1. Month 6, 30, forgive me my eyes, 38 to 1, 78 to 1, 231 to 1. I wouldn't go out 3 years, but we can. The point is, how does this bring home to anybody you're working with? Because when we talk about, we're going to get you an increase in conversions, or we're going to work on building your business, that's really abstract to people. When they look at it, they're used to dealing with a media buyer, and I'm not that says, my fee is $10,000 plus, or $5,000 plus a percentage of ad spend, and they're adding the numbers. This is a way that you can flip that around. And then we have additional, like if instead of 30%, it went to 40%, 50%, or 60%, and you can look at the difference in gains. So easy tool. We're going to be giving you other tools. I'll tell you there, when I show you how I go about breaking things down, there's going to be a tool that's going to, at least initially, be able to do this for you instantly. I'm going to give you, I believe in the next class, how we start. We used to have our team members spend 2 to 3 weeks, 2 people, full-time, doing the research, how you can get to the down and dirty, literally in a day, less, couple of hours to get here. But at any rate, here is this tool. We will make sure everybody has access to it. Does anybody have any questions regarding this? Again, we're at our starting point. We just want to make sure everybody knows. I think also, from my perspective, this also shows you the power, right? How are you going to be presenting this to a client? We'll tell you and talk to you about how you can utilize this, whether you're a copywriter, whether you are a media buyer, whether you are in general, regardless of where you're at, in the company, not in the company. We'll have long discussions about that. And between the 3 of us in real world have different ways that we've done it. But I hope this makes sense. Does anybody have any questions regarding this or any thoughts?
Yeah, I will say just real quick, one of the ideas I have is to be able to take this bot, calculate, and show them what they could possibly make in terms of ROI, and then have a proposal writer where it goes into the proposal and it structures the deal in the way Scott would structure it for all his CRO clients and that sort of deal. So we're trying to streamline everything that Scott teaches. We're getting together week by week and getting you a tool that kind of accompanies that and does the heavy lifting in the areas that he's teaching in. So that makes sense.
Yeah, thanks. Yep.
So
there's yes.
So one thing I thought of, because and I'm saying this because we've seen this in our own test, is because seasonalities change, offers get tired, whatever. There's a world where your test works, right? And then for reasons outside, 2 months later, sales start to go down. And you need to be able to say to them, yes, sales went down, but they would have gone down more if we haven't been testing.
Exactly. Yep. It's a really good point. And first of all, not all, as you know, markets are that bad, right? I know which market you're talking about, and I just want to, don't know if I want to reveal, so it's fine. But that usually in most markets is not as extreme. But to your second point in there, that's exactly right. Listen, none of us can control what Facebook does, Google does tomorrow. We can't control ad costs and ad rates. I can tell you 2 parts of that I'm thinking out loud as I talk about this, is that number 1, to your point, if you aren't testing, you're falling behind. To your exact point or similar, if you're not improving and your clients aren't increasing their conversion rate and their AOV and just everything throughout their entire funnel, front end and back end, they're falling behind, right? We see that. Anybody who's buying it sees that. We can clearly see the amount of competition. We're going to talk a lot about how to separate yourself completely, how we're able to do this. But to your point there is that absolutely. And the lesson there is for anyone. If you are not moving forward, if you are not increasing, you are losing. And that's why, but I don't want to keep hammering this down. I just want everybody, because again, people from different backgrounds, and I know that people have been dealing with clients, probably have had a wide range of experiences with those clients. Some good, some okay, and some just a pain in the butt. And to this point, right? The reason why doing this on our end, whether we sometimes wanted it or not, we work with clients for 2 years plus for that exact reason. You are constantly optimizing. The market is constantly changing. Market sophistication is changing. What kind of offers are out there are changing. I think another part built into your comment, which I really appreciate, is the fact, and this isn't actually explicitly stated in your comment, but I'm gonna say it anyways because I think it may be an important point, is that the advantage of optimizing the way we optimize is that competitors can copy or try to funnel hack your page or your offers, but they usually do not have any clue as to the detail, right? When two words, and I'll show you an example here. I want to at least, even if we still have time, good. I want to show you as an example. Even two words makes a big difference. Now, I'm not saying we're just testing two words, but the point is, it's like that old iceberg thing, right? They're going to see what's on top, but not down below. And I know I went a little bit off your point, but yeah, if you're not optimizing, what is your choice? We get asked all the time. Well, we're doing this and we're doing that, and we're not quite ready. Are you sending traffic? If you are paying for any traffic, and I would argue even affiliate, you're technically paying for it with your reputation, then how can you afford not to be working on this? We don't listen. They have to be doing some substantial volume at this stage because we don't work with a lot of clients for us to deal with them. But when people ask us, we're honest with them. Meaning, even when, like, I know Leanne, and I don't know if she hopped off the call, but when you're talking about a small client, how can they afford not to? For many of the same reasons you're talking about, big company, offer improvement, offer changes. I would argue that everybody has to be improving, because the answer usually isn't, we need a whole rewrite. The answer, I would say almost never. The answer is never, we need a whole new page. That is like taking another shot in the dark. Most of the time, it's the conversation that I bring it up because my friend just had it on Sunday that I talked about doing a lot of media. That's exactly what he's talking about now. They had to expand to a lot of other networks. The offer they know is working isn't working as well. And his answer, as experienced, somebody that's been doing this and building there, is, I know we just have to improve our conversion rate. So it's about educating them as to what takes place and how you go about it, and not to get caught off in committee. I'm guessing the conversation go on like that, potentially, that says, holy moly, the sky's falling. This is Facebook's issue. What do? We need to get a whole copywriter. Your team has to write, if it's in-house, or to rewrite this entire lead. We need to test 5 new leads. Most of the time, it's not burnout. Most of the time, you don't have to do that. So I love that kind of point. I think we're going to be able to skip through some of this, right? Because we did it ahead. So, right, just they see it as an expense. For media buyers, again, just have to display these really cool images. But no, it's like we talk about it as having holes in a bucket or holes in a boat. And you get a really good media buyer. And what are they going to do? They're going to sink, put rocket fuel on it. They're going to sink the offer or the company quicker. It's because when they come to you, they very rarely, from our experience, is it a media buying problem. It usually is an offer problem. And most of the teams that we work with, and they understand that, right? They understand that, they just don't have control over it. So imagine putting yourself in a position where you are able to control this, and not by guessing, not by putting 8s at the end of a number with it. If anybody didn't get that, it's completely and totally ridiculous. And for the record, I did hear Ted Nicholas, and it's been proven wrong, say the 7s, but that was a new one to me. I've never heard 8s. So that's on that's on that. This I talked about, the 80-20 rule. I just wanted to keep moving so that we can give as much value and get everybody's questions answered. I was going to pull this up. I'll just tell you, we have, and I've only touched the tip of the iceberg, we have a Trello board that grows by daily with our plan, right? With what we do. I will give as much of this in addition to what we plan here as I can during this class. I was going to show you all of that, but okay, thank you. So we talked about this, and I'll give you an example of something there. So I want to hit this home again and just mention this, because this is going to be important to what we talk about in the future. Everybody has a perception as to what should be improved, but literally everything is either increasing or decreasing conversions. And forgive me, by the way, as I say this, I forget who it was that posted in the group, and hopefully you're on the call, but had mentioned, something that you took a client and you removed a GIF and saw an 8% increase. So I'll talk about this, and I'll talk about that in general. We're going to talk about something called semantic separation. We're going to talk about how you can utilize all these to get wins. We're going to really get down dirty. But one of the biggest things, back to funnel hacking and people copying, is they're throwing a bunch of, and this is a lesson for another day, but I'll mention it while we're here, a bunch of crap on a page because they think they need it, because they think that their competitors have it. And one of the big ones, and I don't even know if it's even popular anymore, but when it first came out, was those little proof apps where we'll show the so-and-so bought. We got a 32 to 37, I don't remember the number there, % increase in actual sales by removing it. The lesson isn't that we're geniuses, and the lesson wasn't that the proof app may or may not work. The lesson is that everything that you place on a page is either increasing conversions or decreasing conversions. And yes, we're going to talk about big messaging, but if you have certain social icons on your page, I'm making this up because you think you need social icons. Are they creating a hole, or are they increasing conversions, right? Is that extra paragraph or additional chart increasing conversions or decreasing conversions? So we'll talk about how to actually figure this out, but just for the record, most pages that we've seen, you can go in and start testing. Here it was, and now it's not. If you do so intelligently, and you're going to see increases. But the overall lesson here, just macro lesson, is everything that is seen on a page or not seen on a page is either increasing or decreasing conversions. And I gave this, and forgive that, that was over it. When you're using our software, and if anybody have ever heard this, it's fine, but we ask the clients to set up what we call single variable tests, and usually just make a simple change that will not affect their traffic. And it's just so that they can play with it and make sure that everything that they set up is working like it should, that they didn't make any mistakes. This particular client made 2-word change, and they come back to us and said, and I don't remember if it says it here or not, they forgot to shut off the test, and they got a 10% boost in leads and a 10% increase in applications based on a total test group of 7,000. All right, they have a lot of traffic. Why did I include that in? It's not about what they tested. We could all play, hindsight and Monday morning quarterback, whatever it is, the proper saying, and say, oh yeah, the 2 words, here's why it changed. The real lesson here is that none of us know. The best copywriters in the world do not know. They believe you may have a lot of experience. You may have insight as to what's worked and what has not worked. You may labor over a headline, but if you're turning over one headline and one offer to the person, how do you know when 2 words is increasing their application by 10%? And again, this holds true on the media buying side. It holds true when we're talking about ads. How do you know? People make assumptions. And so this isn't about us getting in here and testing 2 words. I would never recommend that. It's about understanding that all the words and all the messaging and how we're talking about it have big effect. And if we are the greatest copywriter in the world, if we open ourselves up and, there are ways, and Jason will talk about this, utilizing AI, and we'll all talk about it to make this quicker. But I think that the number one thing here is to understand, back to everything on your page is either increasing conversion or decreasing conversions, and understand that whatever you're supplying, even if you've lived in that market, is a V1. Talking about living in a market will lead to the next class. There isn't a time, and I'll show and I'll share, that we don't present to a client what we put together, right, about their market. To clients that have teams, to clients that think that they know their market inside and out, to clients that have media buyers and creative directors and heads of sales that all believe when we interview them at the beginning, and we'll talk about that as well, interview to get inputs and things like that, believe they know their market. And there is also never a time that we show them this, that they say, wow, and I didn't realize that. And yeah, we should test. And this isn't because everybody here is going to be able to duplicate this and duplicate this a lot easier. It's just my whole goal, if I get one message off, like for today, is, and when I wrap it up, I'll give like some takeaways and some next steps that I would love for everybody to get involved in. I just want you to know why we're passionate about this. I love making good things better. I love making okay things work. And for everybody that's in here, I believe, I thought, okay, you called it a loophole. I wouldn't necessarily call it a loophole, but I get where you're going from, but that's okay. But it is, because it's a way and ways to get in the door where you are physically increasing the bottom line of a business. There's nothing in my mind closer to a rainmaker. So some of you may decide to just do the CRO and add it, a lot of money in. Some of you may want much more involvement. It depends on, your workload and how you're structuring it and what you want to do. But that is what I wanted to talk about. So I'm just going to show this, and this is going to be something I'm going to save for the next class and talk about. There is so much more to be tested than anybody here or anybody there actually understands. We'll go through and we'll break this down. This was a test on a pre-sale page, right? We tested the logo and different sizes of logos. We tested there was nothing here. We tested things like phone number. We tested multiple headlines. We tested this with pre-heads and subheads. We tested the hero image. We tested the first paragraph. This is just an advertorial that we did not rewrite, right? We tested here, this particular paragraph, the closing paragraph, the closing, this URL, and this, right? And we'll talk about this because each one of these has really, I'll share this on the next thing. I'll show an example. And I have one of the most boring examples that I always pull out because it's boring, where for a flashlight, our team created over 200 headlines. We don't ever intend to test 200 headlines, ever. But it enabled us to break it down into different categories, which we'll talk about doing, and break this apart. And those different angles, hooks, headlines are used in captions and subheads throughout the page, and in closes, and ways to get outside of your own head. Because the number one issue that most people have is, and we'll talk about this next class, and especially copywriters, and that isn't picking on copywriters, just how you've been trained, is to get like outside your own head. We'll talk about that a little bit. We're going to talk about, and forgive me, Brad, about the relationship and the relationship between variables. And I'm not going to spend, I'm going to, like, looking at the time, I will come back to this, but I love sharing a quick story. And it will be, I'll butcher it, but I'll do it anyways. Most people think this is about picking a variable on a page and testing headline 1 versus headline 2. You can do that, but you have to understand that this is about the relationship between all the variables on the page. This is about picking and finding the perfect page recipe. And it's why so many people go up and down and having issues. So I share this story, guys, so they're back. I don't even know if I saved the date. It was 1920s in Yellowstone. They decided to remove the wolves. And they thought they were becoming a pain in the butt and causing issues with the farmers, and they were killing cows and crops and whatever else may be happening. But what ends up happening, if I recall, they thought they solved the problem, and the elk population bloomed, right? And so they start eating all the vegetation. And again, forgive me for the poor, quick story, but they started there. So they started getting erosion, and they had all kinds of erosion, and other animals were dying because they picked something out of the environment. Years later, they reinstituted the wolves, and the same thing reverse started happening. The elk population started dying down, the vegetation and erosion started coming back and evolves. I like that as a lesson because we somehow think of like our environment as like universal, right? Like we're going to change just this headline. And clearly, we know from Claude Hopkins, we know from the masters, you can do it. You can test headlines, you can get big increases. But if you start thinking about things and we're not about in its parts and that everything works together, you're going to start getting additional bumps and bounces. And I'm crediting this one to Jason because he just been playing around some AI copy. He used the analogy of a cake. It's the same thing, right? I won't belabor this. If you pull the eggs out of the cake, you're not going to have a very, very good cake, right? If we pull any one piece out of it. So there's a couple of lessons here. Number one, start thinking about your page as a whole. Number two, we don't want to think in terms of making changes randomly like teams always do to 3, 4, and 5 items on a page, right? And I talked about this, so I'm just going to wrap this up, but I want anything. So first of all, I want to give you a couple of takeaways because I talked about a lot of stuff and I want to tell you where we're going and give there. So number one, we learned about ripple effect, right? We want to understand that everything we test over here, any moves we make, any changes we make are going to ripple across the entire funnel positively or negatively, right? We're going to talk about effective CRO not from the standpoint of best practices, because there are plenty of people that are going to tell you this is the kind of headline you need to run. There are plenty of people that are going to tell you, you need this on the page. And I see it every day. And I look at that sometimes and we'll throw in our list and we'll say, okay, that is a testable item. I don't care if you're in a mastermind with 8-figure, 9-figure business owners and they share, quote unquote, their biggest secret. Look at it as a testable item. There's a different mindset, right? We'll talk about in there that not all tests are equal, right? That we want to be able to do testing on items that are going to make scalable improvements. We're going to talk in depth about semantic separation, how you can use this, right? I want you to have a real understanding here from today. This is a takeaway, is that by showing you these case studies, honestly, I'm not here to impress anyone. I'm not going to, I just want everybody here to know what you can do, right? I want to highlight between my case studies, and I'm sure Jason and Brian will have stuff that they're going to share, so I think I can speak to them. It's about understanding what you can possibly do, what you can do by taking some of this information that we're giving you, and what kind of real world impact. Like we talked about a 30% increase. Think about that for a moment for your own business or for your client's business, or even media buyer, copywriter. What does that make a difference? We're not talking click-throughs, talking real sales. Let's just take that small amount, and I want you to there. We want to talk about, and we talked about misguided practices, right? This isn't about click testing. You cannot eat clicks. Clicks on the ad networks do not result into buyers, right? It's misleading. It is chasing down the wrong tail. Okay, I know that isn't even a good phrase, but whatever, you get the point. We talk about the power of words. This is number one. Like we have, I don't care, media buyer, copywriter, this is not about trying to tweak their button. This is about understanding how to do, we can do that. We'll talk about it. There'll be certain things I'll absolutely pass around. But if a 2-word difference in a message makes a difference, then we all have to take back our egos and understand that we don't know a damn thing. Like I go in always like that. I talk like very definitive that we should do or there, but I'm talking from the standpoint we're going to let the data tell us because we don't know. I've seen ugly ass logos that were AI driven on a thing that I would have never bothered to test make significant changes in the actual sales. You just want to know that, right? AI is a tool, not a threat. I think we talked about that a little bit. It absolutely isn't. I think it's a threat if you're going to be a one-trick pony. I think it's a threat if you're going to set yourself up as a commodity. And we don't want to hide and pretend like it's not. Oh, I'm better than that. I'm going to tell them how I am the best media buyer in the world. It's just It's a tool. I know everybody, I'm pretty sure everybody on this call has used AI. I think what we can do is learn a new way to use AI and use a new way to take what you're doing on AI and actually apply it to your own businesses, to what you're doing for consulting, to become a CRO and a CMO, to be able to improve clients' results much, much easier than ever before and secure yourself. I don't like to throw out like marketing terms. There's nothing closer, in my opinion, to the Rainmaker, to becoming a Rainmaker. And so you will get a reputation. The way, I'll spill one secret, which isn't a secret at all. The reason my calls, and this isn't about me because I truly believe everybody on this call can do this. The reason my calls generally go really quick and I don't do any convincing because we don't even want when we have a full-blown CRO client is because actions speak louder than words. That's why I'm leaning into this. I think that, I want to give rid of the skill to take what you already know. And even if you're doubting yourself or worrying, what you have now, you can multiply this. Like everybody here, because I either know you personally, know of you, et cetera, and know the quality. I have no doubt. And we talked about this, I think, beforehand, the type of people we want on this call. So I'm honored. But I want you to know that AI is absolutely not a threat. I can't say that it may not be a threat if you just want to write copy. I can't say it won't be a threat if you want to be a media buyer, just based on it. But anyway, so that's there. We're not going to talk, we're going to forget about best practices. We're going to talk about, this is something about giving value. I'm just going to say that, like, if you can provide value, if you can reposition yourself in all your clients' minds, and it does not take a lot of time. I'm just going to let you know, if you're a media buyer or CRO, doing what we're talking about here will not take a lot more of your time, but the perception that you're going to have in the eyes and how a client is willing to deal with you. And we could probably have a conversation, a group powwow and war stories and everything else, but how our client will treat you is how they perceive you. And so I think that is there. We talked about the testing calculator. We talked about the 80-20 rule, which I am just going to make mention of again. Somebody, you're free. Like if you have a different opinion there, I just have seen that it is all about the creative, that all the best hacks and the best media buyer or the best cannot outrun, no algorithm can outrun a converting offer. No algorithm can outrun if you're increased 30% in actual sales. Like there aren't enough levers for a media buyer to pull. And we're picking on that, but we could talk about this across whatever you're doing. So I think that 80-20 rule is actually a really, really, really good thing. It always has been from my perspective, because while others are promising the world and can't deliver, you can go to somebody hypothetically and say, listen, I see the data right here. Your offer just isn't converting up to snuff, what you provided me. Right? Imagine having that conversation. We're willing to help you. And you give them a no risk type offer. So again, this is just, we have a lot of the blind leading the blind. I want to say just a couple, I'm just going to give you a couple of next steps. This is easy, not homework, but easy. I would love, and I said this at the beginning, you can do it privately, you can reach out to Jason, Brian, or I, it doesn't matter, but you can do it in the group, however you want to do it. I would love to get pages. But else, I want them in advance, because if you give them to, I can listen, I can do what we do off the cuff, but I can give you a lot more value if I have the time to, I don't know how to come through where we can dig in. I would really, really, really love to take what we're talking about as theory and me like just regurgitating and have it broken down for your ads and give you something, everybody here, if we can, to take away to be able to use. And I can promise you this, that even if you don't want to, or if you don't do it yourself, everybody's going to learn from everybody else. At least this is here all the time, how you approach it. So that's number one. I'd love for you to come with your own theories before we even break it down. I'd love, and if you want to do this privately, that's fine. It will make this class much more valuable if everybody can actually do this. But I'd love to have you identify 3 to 5 elements on your page that you think would increase conversions and why. And let's discuss it, right? We're going to go over this, but I want you to identify what you think the key metrics for success on the page of the funnel is, right? Here's something else. If you're looking to make this work, I had thought about this, and I think that it would be very cool as through the class, if you have 1 or 2 existing clients, you don't approach them yet, but that you think could benefit, and I'm guessing all of them could, but you do 2 best. I would love for you to identify them, and we'll try initially, this is just your initial thoughts that we can talk about and that we can bring through, like what are the challenges or gaps. So I'm going to stop it there. I hope everybody felt it was valuable. We're going to really start getting into breaking this down, but I want to see if anybody has any comments, good or bad, opinions in general, that wants to talk, questions. If you have something that you absolutely want covered, you can bring it up here, you can bring it up there. Like I know Liana brought up a couple that I jotted down that I definitely want to. So I think it'd be helpful.
Scott, thanks for this. I was wondering, will we have a roadmap for what's happening each week and what's going to be covered?
Yes, I'll give a short yes. So what I wanted to do, and we have a I want to answer this a couple of ways. The short answer is yes, we have a roadmap as to where I want to go. The longer answer is that I could talk specifics and break down pages for 5 hours a day across 8 different classes. I would like the roadmap to be flexible. While I want to, we'll make sure absolutely that all 3 of us give you what we set out to give you. I want to make sure that we adapt that roadmap to what you as a class, what you as a person need. So you may have some things or angles that are specific to what you want. That's why I'm keep asking about. But the short answer is yes, we'll absolutely give you a roadmap of what's going to be covered and what we want to talk about. The longer answer is, I think all 3 of us agree. What we'd really love to have happen is for you or as a group, even if it's in a couple, to give us what your biggest challenges are, what you want to come away with the class with. I think we have a good handle on it, but I will let you know that we're willing to, number one, adapt and do whatever. I'll just say this here. I want everybody, whatever it takes, when you leave the class, I don't want anybody left with a question unanswered or feeling like what they needed wasn't covered.
Yeah, I will say that as we've been planning this out, one of the things we need to collect however many people are going to be giving us funnels and URLs and whatnot. So we already have a good many of them. We have, I think, like 5 different ones that I've seen come in. There may be more sitting in my email box because you can send them to me privately if you want to, if you don't want to just spew the links everywhere. Yeah, just send them to me. My email is in the chat right there. I'll gather them all into a document for me, Scott, and Brian, and then we will have a better idea of, I think, the overall roadmap. Although we know exactly where we're going, we need to like put time aside for each one of these that come in. I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I think absolutely. I love, by the way, I'm thrilled at least 5 have already. I'd love, hopefully a lot more. I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So send them in, and my email address is right there. I'll be the one that collects them, or you can post them in the Facebook group, or I think that's probably pretty much the 2 ways you can do it, or DM me on Facebook if we're friends on there. So
cool. Does anybody have any thoughts? I hope it was valuable for everybody. I know this was the kickoff and sort of a baseline. I felt it was probably, we'll really start getting into the nitty gritty starting next week, but I hope that there were enough takeaways. And I'll just say this one last time, like from my perspective, is sort of to shift your thought process as to what actually CRO is, and optimization, I think, is important because I think it will lead to everything else you're going to be doing. But if anybody has, I'm open to, thoughts, criticisms, what you liked, what you didn't like. If you don't want to share it now, it's fine. But yeah, I'm really excited. As you can tell, I get passionate about this. I love talking about it, as I do know that both Brian and Jason are as well. But yeah, we're looking forward so much to this. I think it will be a lot of fun, but more importantly, have you get something that you take away.
Scott, I do have a question. We've talked about this privately before. A lot of my clients are in areas where it's very difficult to jump through the hurdles of advertising. I have 2 cannabis clients and I have a firearms client. And so ads for all of them are very difficult. So we rely mostly on content and email marketing. And I'm wondering, just selfishly, is that going to be covered, or is this all just paid traffic
okay.
applicable?
I love that. So as I usually do, I'm going to answer your specific question and add to it a little bit. First of all, I don't care. And for you, you don't care where that traffic is coming from. The only thing you want to be aware of is when you are getting organic traffic and you're optimizing, which you can in the same way. Eyeballs are eyeballs. So nothing we talk about or go through and break down is going to change for you and for your clients. Meaning the process you're going to follow to optimize is going to be the exact same process. A couple of thoughts pop up. Number one, just be aware that when you optimize for organic, that will not necessarily translate to paid. It's just 2 different relationships, just like 2 different ad networks. But so number one is yes. And if you have anything specific that as we go along with this, your question, I think number 2 is just to be aware that there will be a difference. That is a different traffic source because of the relationship, but it all is the same. I think that the other thing that I wanted to mention is that you want to potentially watch for noise, like we talked about earlier, but I'll talk about that. And that's easy to accomplish, easy to see if it's going on in your tests, but generally nothing changes. And the last part of it, I will let you know, and this is a discussion for a whole different scenario, is that you absolutely can run. If you're already successful over there, and I know you are, you can run cannabis and hemp, and there's ways to run it. That's probably a discussion for a different class, but it's something that if we have time, we can cover here or can give some recommendations. I don't even know if that's something you want to do, but I'll let you know they can do to expand. And I would say one other scenario there, and again, we got a lot of good traffic people, so I'm talking about just running traffic, so you can absolutely do that. The other thing is there are other ways potentially to run traffic, but to your core question, it makes no difference whether you're working with a company that is all affiliate traffic, whether you are working with, in this case, all organic traffic, you can drive the same thing and optimize in the same way.
Okay, and the reason why I brought it up specifically is paid ads to cold traffic to a page
Yep.
is a very different scenario than
Yep.
organic traffic from an audience that already know, likes, and trust you. And so we've talked about the first scenario a lot. We didn't talk anything about the second one, so that's why I was asking.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point, right? So what you're testing in part is the messaging is not assuming that you're meeting them where they're at. The actual process that you're going to determine and the type of experiments that you're going to run, because again, we're not talking specifically about use this headline, right? In other words, we're talking about understanding how to break this down and do it in an intelligent way to increase conversions is the same. And the fact that you pointed that out and are aware of it is absolutely true. I won't bring up the name, but I remember like a decade ago, like a team had the largest Facebook. Had the largest Facebook group for a particular niche. They were in the millions, and at that time they had just the largest. It wasn't even a group. Maybe it was a page at the time. I don't think groups even existed. And one of copywriter that we know, this is just a side story, we all know, and I won't ever do this there, and has a really, really big reputation, wrote them a VSL. And I may be exaggerating, but not by much. It cost them, I think, at the time, so we're going back way, at least $30,000 for the VSL. And the moral story, they lost half of their Facebook group. They were so pissed off. So it is real, right? To understand as part of like the research phase what we're actually dealing with. And in your case, it's quite obvious, meaning that you do not want to approach them and show them messaging in the same way you would show cold traffic, because not only could you potentially not increase conversions, you could potentially alienate a lot of them. But the actual process as to how you're going to approach that, and we can absolutely talk about specifics in your niche based upon that and how you can figure out what that messaging is, will absolutely apply, and we can look even deeper into it. Did that answer everything, Nathan?
Yep, and I appreciate you.
Oh, I appreciate you. Thanks. Anybody else have anything that they want to know for, or
I just want to say, Scott, this was totally awesome, and I'm so looking forward to the next 8 weeks. Could we just bring it forward over the next 8 days?
I would be able to handle that, but and I'm sure some people get tired of hearing me over the next 8 days, but I appreciate you. That's awesome. So listen, if there isn't anything else, I guess we can wrap this up. Unless Brian or Jason, do you have anything you wanted to add before we close up this particular session?
I'm just as excited as anyone here, to be honest. CRO, I'm so excited to add that to my arsenal. I will say, in general, because I'll try to keep this brief, it's never been easier to add more skills and upskill in various areas and command and higher pay. I know people have a bleak view of things that are happening, but mine's the exact opposite for that reason. Like, I'll just give you an example. This year, I've easily added video skills to my plate. With AI video tools, I can do anything any video editor can do. So that was a conscious decision to do that. Now I can make SOPs for people who will work under me, or just make them myself or whatever. But I just feel like there's so much opportunity now to, because of AI, really, to kind of look upskill in all these areas, become CRO, CMO. At the very least, I'm at the very least adding the CRO skills and just being able to charge more. I mean, frankly, for the clients I'm already dealing with. But those are just kind of my thoughts on the whole class.
I don't know if you want to share, and that's okay if not there, but just as a tidbit, because I know personally you supplied, if I'm correct, the actual ads for a recent promotion, something that you don't normally, just as an illustration for that, and they crushed, like literally handed them to a client. So you can not share it either. I just wanted to make a point. I know for a fact I saw the numbers. I don't know if this is something you want to go over during the thing there, but just to bring that home, like what you're talking about here for everybody listening is actually in this case, because it was Black Friday coming up and the whole bit, as far as I know, you not only wrote the ads, but handed them to them to go run and test.
It is UGC style AI generated ads that I learned from Scott. He told me about the source. But I'm doing things like with AI generated reels and all kinds of stuff like that. They did really well, and we keep on cranking them out. The first time we tested them was for Black Friday, and the media buyers who are Agora trained said they'd never seen, or some people call them CAC, some people call them CPAs, but he'd never seen such a low CPA from these videos. But they were all AI generated start to finish. We're doing complete webinars that are completely AI generated. We're taking the voice of the company, the face of the company, and kind of like superimposing their voice over everything. And so not just like with reels or video ads or whatever, YouTube, Facebook, but actual webinars. So I've been able to get into that space really easily, and that's really increased my value as a CMO. Being able to just tell people what to do and creating SOPs, but also doing some of the heavy lifting, which I just want to reiterate. I feel like that's as a CMO, I have to know how to keep revenue going up. I have to know strategically what to do. I rely a lot on AI and copywriting, but the more I can add, just the more valuable I become, the more higher fees I can command. That's just my whole outset. And,
And
and I feel
longevity.
like it's a blessing. Like the things that are happening right now in the world are a blessing. Like if you realize opportunities, and I really feel like CRO in particular is perfect to get into right now. So
Cool. I appreciate it. So I want to thank everybody. I really appreciate it. And I'll look forward to, all of us will look forward to the next class. And I had a lot of fun, so I hope you did too.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.